Welcome to the audio and video self-guided walking tour of the Thomas House Hotel, and we would like to welcome you to Ghost Hunt Weekends. If you are new with us, Ghost Hunt Weekends is the world's largest paranormal event company, hosting over 80 live ghost hunt events a year at haunted locations around the world. Before we begin this tour, please click the like button, the subscribe and the bell notification icon. Most important, click subscribe so we can get started. We will begin this tour here in the lobby. You will hear stories of the hotel's history along with photos and videos as you move along to different parts of the hotel. You will be instructed to pause and unpause the video as you move through the hotel. This is Daryll Cole, co-owner of the Thomas House Hotel.
The hotel was originally built in 1890 by the Cloyd family. There was Thomas Tyler Cloyd, Zach Cloyd, and Henry Clay Cloyd. They were brothers. They moved here and they originally opened a hardware store and then after they started the hardware store, the business in the area started growing, so they decided to build the hotel. So they built it in 1890. It was a two-story wooden structure. It was built right here on this site. They ran it for years and then it caught on fire and burnt to the ground. After it burnt, they went out and cut all the wood that's in this building right here on their property. All the brick was made right here on location. They built the building that's here now and they finished it in 1924.
At this point, pause the video and walk past the staircase and towards the glass door and into the seance room. When you reach the inside of the seance room, resume the video. This is the seance room. You may notice that this room feels cooler than other areas of the house. This is because it is built on top of an open mineral spring. The builders of the hotel did this on purpose. This room originally did not have a floor, and the cool air that came off the open spring was fanned through the building, and was basically old-fashioned air conditioning. The photos you see on the walls are old photos from the surrounding area, the workers, family and life around the what was called then, the Cloyd Hotel or the Cloyd Place. The mantle in this room was reclaimed from the Maxwell House Hotel in Nashville. It survived a fire from that hotel. If you look closely, you can see the charred wood and bubbled mirrored glass. Strangely, this mantle was brought here to the Thomas House and survived the fire here. Pause the video and continue up the stairs to the second floor. When you reach the sitting room at the top of the stairs, unpause the video. You should be at the second floor at the top of the stairs in the sitting room. Here is hotel co-owner, Daryll Cole, as he recounts some experiences.
We had a lady that stayed with us. Her name was Sue Poe. She was actually a poet. And she was inspired to write a poem called The Lady in Pink, which we have it here. And she said the reason she was inspired to write it is she was going up the stairs one night. She said she felt someone lay their hand on her shoulder and follow her up the stairs. And at that time I had a mannequin at the top of the stairs dressed in pink. So that's where she got the name of the poem, The Lady in Pink. But she said she actually wrote the poem because someone followed her up the stairs. And then when you get to the top of the stairs, there's the sitting room up there where the television is. And we do a lot of EVP work there. And we have a lot of different EVPs that we've captured in that room. And right in there is also where a paranormal group from Murfreesboro called a full apparition of a man walking right behind the settee right there in front of the staircase.
If you look to the right of the sitting room, you will see the white hallway. This has rooms 35 through 42 down this hallway. This hallway has changed in appearance over the years due to the several fires and renovations. This hallway is also where the little ghost girl named Sarah is encountered the most.
The first room you come to is room 35, and we've had people stay in that room that have smelt the sweet fragrance of roses. They've had people claim that someone lay down in the bed next to them. Objects have moved on the dresser and on the table right in front of the sink. And then, of course, right behind that room is room 37, which is Sarah's room. And, of course, Sarah's been seen in that room, and there's been several videos shot in that room. There's one that was shot. You see a black object jump up and run out like it runs across the wall. And then there's a sack video that's on YouTube that you can watch. You can see a sack on the dresser actually move. We've had people claim that the ball has moved around. I know one group stayed in there and they planted the ball between the beds and put magazines all around it. They left the room, locked the door, and when they went back, the ball had moved from between the beds into the bathroom. So that's just a few things that happened in 37, 38. We had a lady and her grandson that stayed here one night, and the boy the next morning claimed that the sheets were tucked in so tight that he couldn't get out of the bed, and he had to slide up out of the end of the sheets to get up. And he thought his grandmother had done it during the night, and she told him that she didn't get up and tuck him in at all. So that was pretty interesting in that. And then we have the video or a picture of an entity entering into that room. And then you go to room 39, and room 39 is the room that Blanca would follow the man in black into, and he would disappear. And we've had a lot of reports of different activity going on in that room. 41, you see a black entity run across the doorway in 41, and then the baskets move on the wall in there. 42, we had some people staying there that said they heard a murder being plotted. It scared them so bad they laid in the floor to see if they could see someone in the hall, and when they looked under the door there was nobody there, and come to find out they were the only people staying in the hotel.
Head back down the hallway and go past the sitting room. We are headed to the museum rooms. These are the rooms with the white gates at the doors. Pause this video if you need time to get in front of the museum rooms.
When you're upstairs, on the second floor upstairs, there are 4 museum rooms. The first one you look at is the toy room, which is 6 generations of our family's toys. And then the next one is the Christmas room, which we keep up year round, and that's we all collected Santa Clauses. The third room is the Victorian clothing room, and that is 6 generations of our family's clothing. It's like my great-grandmother's wedding dress and my wife's wedding dress and are in that room. And then the fourth room is the Gone with the Wind room, and that has a large house, large model of the house from Gone with the Wind in there. And that room is really interesting because a lot of times if you'll sit in the hall in front of that room and start talking about Gone with the Wind, Sarah will react to you talking about the book Gone with the Wind. Actually, we had a friend of mine named Chad Hawkins that was here one night, and we were sitting up there talking about Gone with the Wind, and while we were sitting there, all of a sudden he looked up and saw Sarah going from room 18 across the hall into 19. And he grabbed his camera and made a picture, and it was this huge orb that was so large it covered up the chair, but it had a tail on it coming out of room 18. So we've actually taken the book Gone with the Wind before and sat up there and just read several chapters, and we've actually caught some EVPs by doing that in front of the room up there. But as you go on through that door, you're going towards 18 and 19, and then directly in front of you is the suite. And then when you turn the corner, you're going down towards room 16, and that's where the murder happened, or the guy got shot right in front of room 16 there. One of the real interesting story in front of room 16, I'd been carrying a lot of things upstairs to put in the storage room one day, walking back and forth through that hall. Well, the last load of things that I took up to put in the room, when I came out, there was a large stack of our hotel towels just laying in the middle of the hall floor. Well, if they'd been there before, when I was going back and forth, I would have tripped over them. But somehow they just all of a sudden were moved right into the middle of the hall. Since we're talking about room 16, we've had quite a few people that have stayed in there and told us about different things that have happened paranormal to them while they were in there. For instance, there were 2 ladies, and one of them's husband was staying in the room, and they were on the twin beds, and they'd left the door open because they were just talking, and they said all of a sudden they looked up and there was a gentleman standing looking at them in the room, and one of them waved at him, and he just kind of looked at her, and then he just turned around and walked down the hall. Well, the girl hollered at her husband and told him, said there was some man standing here looking at us. Well, he took off out in the hall, and there was no one there. The bridal suite, one night We had a paranormal group here, and we were doing some investigating, and there was a lady and her husband staying in room 16, and she called us into the room to show us her husband's clothes. She said he was a man of habit, and every night when he got ready for bed, he would take his clothes off and neatly fold them in a stack and put them in the chair. Well, that particular night, he did that same ritual that he always does. She said he undressed and folded them in a neat little stack and laid them in a chair. When she got up to go to the restroom, she walked into the little sitting room in the suite and said there was his clothes in the chair, but it looked like somebody was in them. They had unfolded and the legs were just like somebody was sitting in the chair, and the shirt was leaning up against the back of the chair. And it was almost like someone had just been sitting there and their body had disappeared, but the clothes were still there. So we took pictures of it, and it was very interesting to see. Room 18 is right next to the suite. We've had people stay in there and talk about hearing someone knock on the door and hearing a little girl giggle, and they'd get up and open the door and there wouldn't be anybody there. And then room 19 across from that, we've had several different guests that have stayed in that room, and they hear a cleaning cart at 4 and 5 o'clock in the morning going up and down the hall. Well, we do not clean the rooms at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And several people that we know that actually heard that will refuse to stay upstairs anymore. They won't stay anywhere but in room 5 downstairs. Now, David, my brother, was upstairs vacuuming one afternoon, and as he was vacuuming, he just looked up in front of him and he saw this black shape going very slowly across the hall between room 18 and 19, and he said he stood there and watched it, and it moved very slowly, and he said it just went across the hall and then just disappeared into the wall across on the other side. In room 14 at the end of the hall, we've had several psychics stay here with us that have told us about room 14, that there's a black entity in that room, that it's very dark, it's very sad, and it's so severe that before we let a guest stay in the room, that we should warn them about it, because it could affect them and make them sad, just like the entity that's in the room. And then the blue sitting room across from that, now that room is a very good room for getting EVPs. There's one thing about that room that you need to know, that the main power source does come through the window there, so it will affect your equipment. But it is still a good room for EVP work, and we've gotten quite a few EVPs in there. And that room is the room, when the Paranormal State was here, is the curtain. In the show you see the curtain move, and that's the room that the curtain moved in during the show. And then at the end of the show, that's where my wife started to pass out at the end of the show, and right there in front of room 14, in front of the sitting room.
These are just some of the hundreds of stories and encounters from believers and skeptics alike. During dinner tonight, we will show you a full documentary about the history and hauntings of the Thomas House Hotel. You will be able to see all the photos, videos, and hear the EVPs that have all been captured here. Head down to the dining room where official Ghost Hunt Weekends merchandise is available, including the complete book about the history and hauntings of the Thomas House Hotel, written by Kyle Cobb and Chad Morin, where they will be happy to sign your copy. And remember, if you have not already done it, please hit the subscribe button on this video so you can be updated on future paranormal content. Thank you for attending Ghost Hunt Weekends, and get ready for a fun and exciting evening.